Anyone who has visited Atlanta, Georgia, can tell you what a vibrant, exciting, and fast-growing city it is. Truly the hub of the New South. But those who yearn for a more traditional Southern lifestyle still only need journey an hour or so to communities like Homer, Georgia, where life moves at a considerably slower pace, except for 1 weekend a year, when Homer and its neighboring community of Commerce, Georgia, host the world's fastest sport, NHRA Championship Drag Racing. Today, we bring you the 8th annual AC Delco Southern Nationals from the all-new Atlanta Dragway. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans, and the fans are pouring into this racetrack today for a once-a-year festival of speed. I say all-new Atlanta Dragway because since our visit here a year ago, almost $4 million has been spent on this track. It is truly one the sport can be proud of. Well, to bring us up to date on what has already happened this exciting weekend, here's Paul Page.
Well, Steve, here at the far end, the first round was extremely predictable. This track, after all, is very, very tough to read. And added to that, the humidity today is really very high, making it hard to tune those motors. As a result, it is a racetrack that favors the veteran, and that's certainly what we saw in first round. In Top Fuel, for example, it was Gene Snow. Over 30 years of experience in the sport. He ran the fast run of the round with an ET at 5:25. And Funny Car, Ed McCulloch, who's been racing funny cars since before there were funny cars, was the top qualifier in first round, ran a 5:53. In Pro Stock, Bob Glidden, who's had his problems in the first couple events of the season, used his experience and knowledge to be the top qualifier in Pro Stock and win his first round. Now, as to what to expect coming up, let's go to the staging lanes and Don Garlits.
Thank you, Paul. And as usual, Atlanta offers its own little special problems. The air is never good here, so consequently, these drivers have had to make a lot of adjustments in the fuel systems. In the first round, the low ET Bob Glidden had trouble, so the standouts now are Warren Johnson and Bruce Allen, and they could very well be our best running cars in Pro Stock. Funny Car, the McCulloch car, did wonderful. Right behind him, John Force. These two old veterans seem to be really having a handle on this track and also this tricky air, which is very hard to make horsepower in. Top Fuel, a newcomer. They call him the Kid. Been in it 3 or 4 years now. I still call him the newcomer. He's strapped down at 5.30, looking very strong. But the old veteran, Gene Snow, laid down a 5.25. And he's got Joe Amato in the next round. Amato's performance had fell off just a little bit with a 5.41. So we're going to have Top Fuel action in just a moment. I think they're firing. You go ahead, Steve.
Well, Don, the new owners that spent those millions of dollars on Atlanta Dragway have got to be pleased with the standing room only crowd. And they are up and ready. We're ready for the start of round 2 at Top Fuel Eliminator. There is the big pink car smoking the tires on the burnout. That, of course, is Shirley Muldowney.
And Shirley will face this man, Dennis Forcell from Minneapolis, Minnesota, former alcohol driver. This is his first year in Top Fuel.
You know, Don Garlits, the alcohol drivers like Joe Amato, Darrell Gwynn, who came from those ranks, they seem to make the transition very quickly if they have the right crew chief.
Well, I'll tell you what, I believe in Top Fuel, the way that the competition is today, you need to come out of something like alcohol. You can't just come out there and jump in a Top Fuel car like you could 5 or 6 years ago.
No, and they usually have very good reflexes, too, Paul, because the dragster racing and the alcohol ranks is so close. 100th here, 100th there can determine a race, and often does. Shirley Muldowney, of course, the 3-time world champion, Mount Clemens, Michigan, or the San Fernando Valley in California, depending on the season. Dennis Forcell, a businessman in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he does have the right crew chief, a fellow named Larry Frazier, working on that car. They have already run some teens in their first season in Top Fuel.
Well, Don Garlits, during qualifying, Shirley's crew found a crack in the chassis just ahead of where the wing bolts on. Now, if that come loose, what would have happened?
I'll tell you what had happened. A couple of years ago at Phoenix, we didn't find that crack, and the wing fell off, and I turned upside down at 250 miles an hour. That's what happened.
All right, Shirley Muldowney will be in the near lane. Her husband, crew chief Ron Tober, feeling the cylinder heads. Even though they have a gauge, they still go by feel, Don.
That's right, because the gauge is always about 20 degrees behind what the engine really is.
The staging process being completed. They're off the mark. It is Dennis Forcell. Forcell reacted first off the line and stretches out the margin of victory to a couple of car lengths. A 5.34 for Forcell at 266 miles per hour. Shirley Muldowney will be very disappointed with a 5:48 at only 2:67.
Well, Shirley Muldowney and her crew continue to struggle along this year.
What we're looking at here is the famous window in the side of the KB block. And I'll tell you what, this is what you don't want to see when you get out of your race car down at the far end, because it puts your crew to work if you're going to make the next round.
And in this case, it's the crew of Jim Head. They've got to get that destroyed motor out, a new one in to face John Force in the second round. Will they make it in time? Well, already fired and ready for second round competition in Top Fuel is the driver with the hottest hand in the sport right now from Wichita Falls, Texas, Eddie Hill. His opponent will be Frank Bradley, the official NHRA record holder at 286 miles per hour. But right now, Diamond P Sports, the leader in motorsports television, is proud to present a look from the driver's point of view. For the first time ever in a Top Fuel dragster, a video camera has been mounted right behind the head of Eddie Hill, looking straight down this quarter-mile racing surface. Eddie Hill just 2 weeks ago became the first driver to ever dip into the 4 second elapsed time zone of 4:99 at the Texas Motorplex. Frank Bradley has a brand new race car for this season. It's tougher than he's been in 15 or 20 years. This could be a good match. It won't be an easy one for Hill, Don.
For you fans that don't know what's going on there, that's Bradley's crew chief turning on the computer right at the last moment. You'll see a lot of the crew chiefs up there doing that with these cars. See how he walks up there with it, because they don't want a long computer tape. That gives the shortest amount of tape with the data.
So Eddie Hill inches up through the staging lights in the near lane, and we take a look over his shoulder. Frank Bradley sits on the far side as they launch, and Eddie Hill gets a terrific start. Darts a little bit off to the left, and it's Eddie Hill with a 5:21 at 277 mile an hour pass. Frank Bradley with a 5:35, 271, the loser.
Well, this one deserves another look. Eddie Hill in the near line, the bright yellow car. Let's keep an eye on Hill, because, Don, that car got real kind of twitchy there. It looks like he had to either get off the throttle or correct.
What he hit was a little slick spot, and that Atlanta's tricky like that, but Hill's car bites real good. So he corrected it and went right on to the victory.
Let's take a look over Eddie Hill's right shoulder as he accelerates to 277 miles an hour. Just that quick. And now Eddie Hill is at the far end with Steve.
You know, you appear to be able to get down the good tracks like Gainesville and the maybe not quite so good like Atlanta. How do you do that?
Well, isn't that sweet? This car bites awful good. It hooks real hard out in the mid-range, and I don't have to be quite so careful hitting the lockup like I used to with my my 5-year-old car. So modern stuff helps sometimes.
Indeed, and there's the honking horn of Ursa Hill. We'll let you go. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, who's here?
Boy, Eddie Hill and the crew both having the greatest season of their lives. Look at that. That man is happy. Not nearly the happiness here. This is Jim Head's funny car pit area. The old engine is out. The new one is now going in as they prepare for round 2. We'll have more Top Fuel coming up right after this.
A lot of anxious fans still coming into the new Atlanta Dragway for the AC Delco Southern Nationals. Better hurry, folks. Some great racing coming up. And the nice thing about going to the drag races is you're free to roam the pits and see a lot of the pit action up close. Like right here, the final oil being added to Don the Snake Prudhomme's Pontiac Funny Car. He'll be up against Kenny Bernstein when we see the Funny Car action in just a few minutes in round number 2. Right now, it's time for further Top Fuel action, also still in round number 2. And here was the man who had low ET of the event in the first round, but Eddie Hill just eclipsed that. Gene Snow has got to pick up the pace, Don.
And I can't believe that Gene Snow went over to the right lane after running that low ET in the left lane and watching Hill go down at 5:21 in the left.
Especially when he's facing a former world champion, Joe Amato. Amato has been in the final round of the 2 previous races. This is the 3rd race of the NHRA season. He has not won a race yet, but he accumulates those points towards the world championship. They've got to get rid of Joe Amato earlier if they can.
Well, they're not going to get rid of him if they keep doing stuff like this. Joe Amato is probably giggling right this minute in his car.
We talked at the start about this being a Veterans Day, and here are 2 longtime veterans on the line. First of all, Fort Worth, Gene Snow, who beat Gary Ormsby in the first round, and he faces, of course, from Old Fort, Pennsylvania, Joe Amato.
And where Amato beats so many drivers is off of that starting line, Don. He doesn't worry about tuning that car. He lets his crew chief, Tim Richards, take care of that. Some of the other drivers do double duty. They drive, they tune. Not Amato. He concentrates only on driving, and I think he's become one of the very best we've ever seen.
Well, his reaction times, if you'll just go back and look at the record, are almost consistently better than his opponent.
And if there's a second place early in this year, it'd be that man, Gene Snow. His reaction times coming quite close to Amato's.
And Gene it does run good at times. There's no question about it. It's got a very powerful engine.
The one thing Snow seems to lack is consistency. He'll fire a shot and then come back and miss it by 2 or 3 tenths. All right, they're off the mark. Joe Amato in the near lane. Gene Snow in the far lane. Snow is right there with Amato, but it is Joe Amato. Tim Richards relieved when he sees how close that was.
You bet, because he couldn't tell from behind who was winning that race.
Absolutely not. A 5:34 defeats a 5.42. 274 for the winner, 257 for Gene Snow.
A whale of a drag race. As we watch them come off of the line, Amato hopped the front end.
Immediately gaining an advantage, a starting line advantage on Gene Snow, but Snow's power kept him right with him for quite a while.
Snow ran all the way down the track, but Joe Amato, the winner in the end with a 5:34, 274-mile-an-hour run.
And here's the kid, as Don Garlits called him earlier, from Miami, Florida, Darrell Gwynn, the driver highly touted to be in the running for the World Championship. But so far in the first 2 races, he has been a bit disappointed. And he's facing the man who is the reigning world champion, Dick LaHaye, just now firing his motor.
You know, I think this run right here shows you the family aspect of NHRA drag racing. Kim LaHaye, Dick's daughter, is his crew chief. Gwen's dad is his chief on the car. Everybody in the family gets involved.
Well, drag racing always has been a family sport, even from the beginning, and it still is today. And that's one reason I really like it.
Well, of course, also Jeff LaHaye, Dick's son, is working on the car. His wife, Claudia, is always around doing anything she can. And for the first time, he's gone outside the family and hired a very talented crewman named Tom Cattleman from the Candies and Hughes funny car. That's how much work has to be done on these cars anymore, John. You can't do it with just one roadie. You got to have a whole lot of people.
You've got to have a lot of people to maintain these cars, and even though LaHaye doesn't damage enough parts to warrant that full-fledged deal, he still wants them there just in case he does hurt something.
Dick LaHaye has been working on some new designs on his car, and earlier Steve Evans took a look at the results.
Well, here's something I never thought I'd see. A computer on Dick LaHaye's Top Fuel dragster. After all, he won the World Championship without one, and he's always been so weight conscious. Well, as of this event, NHRA has added 100 pounds to the minimum weight of these Top Fuel dragsters, from 1,800 to 1,900. Now, over the past few seasons, these cars have gained weight. Dual fuel pumps, dual magnetos, heavier blowers, heavier clutches, to the point where very few of the cars even meet the minimum weight. So NHRA added the 100 pounds rather than force race car builders to go to expensive lightweight materials and maybe even compromise safety. Now, it's not a problem for most teams unless you have a real lightweight driver like Dick LaHaye. He has paid the biggest penalty. Over 65 pounds has to be added to this car. There's 25 up in the nose with the computer, and here is the remainder of that weight. Okay, it is in this hollow tube, lead shot. They can adjust the amount of weight in there. Now, mounted below the axle as he has it now, it is just static weight. Now, should he move this bar up here to these pre-drilled holes, it then becomes part of the weight transfer process. All in all, Dick LaHaye not happy with the new rule, but he's living with it. Now, big guys like Dan Pastorini, they think it's great.
And this man, the defending Southern Nationals champion, Darrell Gwynn, kind of falls midway between Dick LaHaye and Dan Pastorini, who, by the way, was beaten in first round by Shirley Muldowney.
Well, we should clarify the point that the cars are weighed with the drivers. That's why the driver's size is important, trying to meet that minimum 1,900 pounds. There's the gold nose piece on Dick LaHaye's car, the world champion. Darrell Gwynn, who wants to dethrone him before this year is over. The tiny front wheels pioneered by Don Garlits. It's a good start by both drivers. Up in smoke, losing traction, and battling, trying to stay in the race with Dick LaHaye, but to no avail. Darrell Gwynn wins this one at 5:23, just 2 hundredths away from low ET at 256 miles per hour.
As we watch the replay, we notice that Dick LaHaye's reaction was the best. He gets off the mark just fine. Everything is doing great, but I don't think he had that weight bar in the right place because it didn't transfer, and there go the tires up in smoke. Darrell Gwynn drives away with ease.
So here are the pairings for the semifinal round in Top Fuel. Darrell Gwynn will face Joe Amato, and Gwynn will have lane choice owing to his lower elapsed time in round 2. Eddie Hill will face Dennis Purcell, and Hill will have lane choice. Let's go to the far end and see.
I'm sure you had been watching Dick LaHaye in qualifying. He smoked the tires literally every time he went down the racetrack, so you knew you went to the starting line with a pretty good shot.
That's right, and I knew I'd have to be on time. We knew the car would have to run good. That's why we stepped the car up. That's why we all tried and did the best we could this particular round, because family like the LaHayes, you got to take your best shot at them.
Job well done.
Thank you very much.
So the Gwen family beats the LaHaye family in Top Fuel round number 2. In the meantime, back in Dennis Forsell's pits, his crew has gone to work on that Top Fuel machine, preparing it for the semifinal round. We'll be back with round number 2 of Pro Stock right after this. Well, it's a humid day in Georgia, but the crowd doesn't seem to mind. Over 42,000 strong here for the 8th annual AC Delco Southern Nationals. Now back in Dick LaHaye's pit, they're not as happy as they could be. Let's go there with Steve Evans.
Dick, to be rather candid about it, I haven't seen your team struggle in a long time like you did this weekend.
Well, you know, Steve, when we started out at the beginning of the year, we started out with a bigger engine and different clutches and so forth, and we were just trying to sneak up on it. Well, this month off we've had, we found out how to obtain a whole bunch more horsepower, and now we're right back where we was before. We're kind of struggling. We've added about 70 pounds to the car under the new rules and so forth, and that's why we wanted to make more power. And it's just a matter of getting the power in the right spot. The car ran very well for the first part of the course that run. It looked, by the computer tapes and so forth, it should have run a middle teen. But then it had too much power out there in the middle of the racetrack and smoked the tires.
Hope you find that balancing soon.
Oh, I'm sure we will. It may take another race or so.
Well, as Dick LaHaye thinks it over, out on the line, it's time for Pro Stock as Tony Christian faces this man, the defending world champion in Pro Stock, Bob Glidden.
Now, Glidden, who struggled a bit at the Gator Nationals a month or so ago down in Florida, seems to have regained at least some of his championship form. He was the #1 qualifier here, however, fell off a couple of tenths of a second in the first round, but did get this far. So Glidden up against Christian, Thunderbird versus Trans Am. And what a contrast these cars are to the Top Fuel dragsters. They don't run 280 miles an hour, but they're every bit as hard to drive, if not more so, because you have so much to do. Well, there's the face of the winningest man in drag racing history, Bob Glidden of Whiteland, Indiana. Now, he's facing off with Tony Christian. Christian got into the second round because in round number 1, he beat a fellow from Philadelphia named Kenny Koretsky. Let's go back and take a look at that race in round number 1, only in a little different fashion than we normally do. Again, from inside the car, another onboard camera. Now, we're riding with Kenny Koretsky. You see the Christmas tree in the left-hand corner of your screen? You saw the red light. That's what cost Kenny Koretsky the race, but look how he battles this car down the racetrack, ultimately going for the parachute right there. Kenny Koretsky on the trailer. Tony Christian survives to go into round number 2.
Pro Stock provides some of the closest competition in NHRA drag racing. The world champion Bob Glidden on the far side, Tony Christian on the near side. As Glidden inches up to the line, there's the lights. Both come away fairly even off the line as Glidden drives it all over the track, and Tony Christian goes on for the win with a 7:56, 183 miles an hour as Glidden has to give it up.
As we watch the replay, we see that Glidden had a slight starting line advantage as the tree turned green. But that didn't stay there very long because evidently we either had a drivetrain problem or he hit a little slick spot, because notice the car makes a violent move and Glidden has to get out of it, because those Pro Stocks, I'll tell you what, they're a handful when they go sideways. And Glidden knows better than anyone else that you don't drive those Pro Stocks when they're acting up like that.
I'm sure, too, he remembers that accident at this very track 2 years ago. Well, Joe Lapone does his burnout as he's ready in Pro Stock round number 2 to face Reed Wisnett. And right in the center of Wisnett's car is the Camera Technologies Diamond P Sports onboard camera. There's the view, Don Garlits, as the cockpit fills up with smoke from the burnout.
That's just what you get. The smoke comes in there from the wheel wells, and it makes the vision a little blurry.
At the far end, Steve's with Tony Christian.
Anytime you defeat Bob Glidden, no matter the circumstances, it brings a smile to your face, Tony Christian. Great job.
Thank you. That made my day.
7:56.
7:56. It's got to go a little bit better, I hope.
I know there's a friendly banter that goes on between you and especially the Glidden boys. What's that all about?
They're just good kids. We get along good. I like them.
He had some handling problems. For sure he did.
It's too bad.
Oh, yeah. He's just crying all the way back to the pits, isn't he?
Tony Christian referring to Bob Glidden's sons, Rusty and Billy. Back up at the starting line, it is Joe Lapone Jr. and his Chevrolet Beretta. He had an easy win over Carlos Sanchez in the first round. He faces Reed Wisted. Now, this is his home track, and that Camaro has our onboard camera.
And that Camaro has been operating at its peak the last few races. A tough competitor. Let's ride with Reed Wisted. Oh, and you saw the red light just over the top of the tachometer. Reed Wisted has fouled away what appears to be a very good run. So Joe Lapone, by default, really, will go to the semifinals. Oh, Reed Wisted is going to be sick when he sees his 762 was quicker than Joe Lapone's 763, but to no avail. And Don Garlits, this wasn't a close red light. He left sometime yesterday.
In drag racing terminology, we'd say he left an hour early. And, you know, it wasn't necessary, Steve, because he had the best ET, could have won the race handily.
But you get so psyched up, especially in a very even match like that should win. Warren Johnson up next. Warren Johnson in the near lane in the Oldsmobile Forenza. Warren from Duluth, Georgia, right down the road, and a graduate engineer from the University of Minnesota. His competition will be this man, Frank Iaconio from New Jersey, who was out of the sport most of last year and has now made the transition from Ford back to the General Motors product he's more familiar with.
Both men ready to go. Johnson, the near lane. Iaconio, the far lane. Look at the light that Iaconio cuts as he tears away from that starting line. Now Johnson with the job of running him down, and he gets it done. Warren Johnson with a 751, 185 miles an hour, and a come-from-behind victory.
The start is brilliant for Iaconio as he gets off the line and practically wins the race right there at the Christmas tree. But Johnson just barely had enough horsepower to end and eased by him by just inches. If it hadn't been for the electronic judging, you would have not known who won this race.
And Warren Johnson had a very respectable reaction time himself. Frank Iaconio just made it look bad with a tremendous start. He may have anticipated just a bit. And Don Garlits back in the pit area. Eddie Hill's crew is, again, not even taking the cylinder heads off of that engine. That's unusual in this day and age.
There was only one guy in the sport that ever did that before, and that was Dick LaHaye. Last year, he wasn't taking the hits off. Now, Hill has got such a wonderful combination, he's not doing it either.
Back at the starting line, it's the last matchup of round 2 in Pro Stock as Kenny Delco is ready to face Bruce Allen.
We've been hearing a lot about that name, Kenny Delco, recently in our Diamond P sports coverage, and there he is from Center Reach, New York. That is a Trans Am that he drives, and he right now has to be considered definitely in the top 10. Bruce Allen, of course, always in the top 10, if not on top. The famed Rear End Morrison Camaro from Arlington, Texas. Now, earlier in round number 1, it was Bruce Allen faced off with his good friend and arch rival, Butch Leal from Blacklick, Ohio.
Leal was the Winter Nationals winner, and of course this is really a rematch of the final round in Pro Stock from the Gator Nationals, which Bruce Allen won. Now both men came off the line very, very close, but Allen won with a 752. Afterwards, Steve talked with Butch Leal.
You know, you blew up the motor that's won you 7 national events. That's a psychological blow.
Oh, it just tears your heart out, you know, and you sit here and you won 7 races with it, and you massage it and love it, and yesterday the last qualifying pass, it kicks a ride out, and we, you know, brought tears to my eyes, and as you seen when I got out of the car, I wasn't too pleased, but this one's going to come around, and, you know, we're just going to have to keep in there fighting, you know, we're leading the points, and I just hope that he doesn't go too many rounds and catches me.
See you in Memphis.
Thank you very much.
Butch Leal still leads in the Winston World Championship points fight. In the meantime, as a result of his win in round 1, Bruce Allen comes up to face Kenny Delco.
The RPMs come up to over 8,000 as both drivers stare a hole in that Christmas tree bulb. It is a brilliant start by Kenny Delco, and mechanical problems suddenly for Bruce Allen. Kenny Delco, very nice, 762, 182 miles per hour, and much like Bob Glidden, Bruce Allen shuts it down, but I didn't see any obvious handling problems.
No, something else must have went wrong, Steve. It had to be a mechanical problem.
So here are the pairings for the semifinal round in Pro Stock. Delco will face Johnson, and Warren Johnson will have the lane choice, while Tony Christian will take on Joe Lapone Jr., and Tony Christian will have his choice of lanes. Coming up next, buddy car action, round number 2. We're back at Atlanta Dragway for the AC Delco Southern Nationals. Over 42,000 people here today for NHRA drag racing. Well, Bob Glidden was beaten in the second round by Tony Christian. Now he's with Steve.
Well, in the solace of his race car trailer, Bob Glidden tries to sort out the weekend. Some good, some bad.
We've had a lot of bad ones here lately, Steve. Another one of those deals. We simply didn't have our act together we didn't make it down the racetrack again.
You qualified low. Things were all in your favor, really.
Well, during the time we qualified, it was overcast. We didn't have the sun beating down on the track. We made some changes for today, and they were all wrong. The other guys made the right changes. That's racing.
But you're back at the performance level you expect from yourself.
Yeah, close. I don't think we're back where we really should be, but we've been testing a lot, and it's certainly getting better.
See you down the road.
See you in Memphis.
Right.
The defending Pro Stock champion from Whiteland, Indiana, still having a very tough time. In the meantime, out at the starting line, it's time for round number 2 in Funny Car, as Ed McCullough is ready to face Tom Hoover.
You heard Bob Glidden remark about Memphis next weekend. Well, that's the Quaker State Mid-South Nationals, the inaugural running of that event at the brand new Memphis International Motorsports Park. Should be a fine event, as this one is. Funny cars, there's nothing like them in the world of motorsports. 3,000 horsepower? Very probably. They weigh 2,150 pounds. The top fuel style engine in front of the driver. They're tough to drive, and if you make a mistake tuning one of these engines, they can bite you.
Yes, they can, Steve. And Tom Hoover there, he really goes back a ways. I remember when he had a fuel dragster back in the old days, and he hadn't been having a good year, but this has been a very good weekend for him.
That's right, a brand new car performing well. Ed the Ace McCullough in the far lane. He is the last of the original national event funny car drivers. Tom McEwen taking this year out possibly in a permanent retirement. So Ed McCullough right there, now living in Hemet, California, is the last of that original touring breed, just as tough as he ever was. Tom Hoover started racing as a family. His father, George, now in his 80s, is here this weekend helping to wrench on that automobile. And a fine car it is. Hoover in the near lane is more confident than I've seen him in a long time. The elapsed time starting to drop down, engine not hurting itself. Ed McCullough, the #1 qualifier, and so far is the car to beat. Number 3 in the NHRA World last year, as denoted by the number on the car.
Ed McCullough, the picture of consistency today. Qualified with a 5.53, run a 5.53 in the first round. Hoover's got his work cut out for him.
Both drivers moving forward very carefully, not wanting to get too deep in those infrared beams. Ed McCullough far lane, Hoover near lane. It is, oh, and look at Hoover's car. Hoover's car suddenly just got out from under it. He's very fortunate to not have made contact with that hard concrete wall. And McCullough slows down a great deal. 575, 199 miles per hour. But it was Hoover who got our attention. Good luck, good driving, Don, or good luck?
Well, I tell you, it must have been a little bit of driving, because it looked like the same thing happened in Gainesville. He come off the line, he shook the tires a little bit, he stepped back on it, and the car went into the wheel stand. If he hadn't have lifted when he did, he'd have hit the guardrail for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot of experience on the part of Tom Hoover. Still, he was only inches away from that wall.
So Ed McCullough wins the first fight in round 2 of Funny Car. Now on the line, it is Mark Oswald, as he is prepared to face Bruce Larson in round number 2 of Funny Car. There is Oswald in that magnificent funny car of his. And the one thing about the noise, you talk about it, you can't replicate it on television. It's not just loud, it's physical. But the fans love it. Let's go to the far end.
Well, in case you don't recognize this man, it's Ed McCullough, some 45 pounds lighter. And Ace, the question I have is not the 575 elapsed time he just ran, but the speed of only 199 miles an hour.
Well, I think it must have blown the burst plate out of the manifold, I think. I'm not sure, but something went wrong, so, we'll go fix it and come back again.
Hoover did a wheel stand, and you were in control from that point on.
Well, a guy needs a break every now and then. It seems like we've had a hard time getting any breaks for a long time, but everything's going just fine, and you see who we race right now.
We know that you know the route to the winner's circle here. You've done it before. Good luck.
Thanks, Steve.
The burst plate, another NHRA safety factor, a little relief valve, really, that has eliminated those awesome blower explosions by allowing the pressure to just bleed away very quickly.
You know, the NHRA and the racers have been working with that burst plate now for about 2 years, and we've just about got it perfected. And when he blows that burst plate, what you don't know is, if he hadn't had the burst plate, it'd have blown the whole body off of the thing.
You're looking at a brand new funny car. It came here to the new Atlanta Dragway, untested, untried. He's made several qualifying runs. Bruce Larson we're talking about here. The first time in Larson's career of over 20 years, he has run anything but a Chevrolet body funny car, the USA 1 Chevy. For Mark Oswald, it's the sleek Ford Thunderbird of candies and hues, a car that has had extensive wind tunnel testing, maybe one of the swoopiest ones out there, done as far as cheating the wind or using the wind for downforce.
Yeah, they're very sensitive about wind. In fact, Candice was telling me about the injectors even shaved around it just a little bit because they don't want that ridge out there in the wind, if you can imagine anything being so finicky.
Here lane, Mark Oswald, 4-lane, Bruce Larson. Both drivers get traction off the line. Oswald forges ahead, then track, can he hold on? Yes, he can. Carlo Paul Candice delighted with that one. Oh, and the time slip will read fine, too. 5:55. Only 200ths away from low ET to a losing 5:62. Big speed for Oswald at 260 miles per hour.
And Oswald smoked the tires as he went through the traps at the far end. Meanwhile, back in the pit area, Joe Amato's crew working on his machine. He faces Darrell Gwynn in the semifinals of Top Fuel. And in Eddie Hill's pit, they're reporting that their engine is still in very good shape. Let's go to the far end now. Steve is with Mark Oswald. Steve?
Well, 3 of a kind beats 2 pair any day. Mark Oswald, 5.55.
That's good. We were waiting for it to come around. I was afraid it just quit on the other end. We were kind of lucky there.
No speed?
No, it just nosed over about 800 feet. We'll have to find out why.
The track is a little bit rougher than some. Does that bother you?
Yeah, but you know, it's the same for everybody.
Good attitude.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Mark Oswald, Paul Candice, and the crew go back to prepare for semifinal round. This man, Kenny Bernstein, is ready to face Don Prudhomme as funny car elimination continues. We'll be right back.
The new Atlanta Dragway for the NHRA AC Delco Southern Nationals. I'm Steve Evans along with Paul Page and Big Daddy Don Garlits, and that is John Force. Certainly, Don Garlits, a force to be reckoned with these days in funny car racing. What a talented young man.
He's been very consistent this weekend, been running real strong. Hasn't been low ET, but you know, low ET doesn't necessarily always win these races. It's consistency.
That's right. When you're low ET, it sometimes means you're running right at that ragged edge and maybe smoking the tires and losing the race. Here is Jim Head. He is such a persistent guy. We saw him change engines for this encounter. He blew up one big time in race number 1 earlier today. So this is an unproven power plant, and what a exotic and fancy burnout Mr. Head lays down. The fans always love those. Jim Head owns a contracting company, a major one in Columbus, Ohio. John Force, well, John is a professional drag racer and has been for 12 years. And last year, finally, as they say in horse racing, broke his maiden. He won the Grand Nationals in Montreal, his first major NHRA race. And Force is always giving all the credit to Austin Coyle, his crew chief, and all the triple little automatic timers now in that car. But there's still plenty of things these drivers have to do inside.
Yes, there are. The driver is very, very busy going down this racetrack because you got to remember, even though the race is a little over 5 seconds, there's a couple of seconds that you don't do anything. So all of those functions take place at about a 3-second interval.
And when you consider these cars are leaving at almost 4 G-forces, the driver is pinned back in that seat, unable to do too much. Right here, Jim Head finds that he's either got too much power or maybe too tight a clutch as he was unable to manage the power that he had. John Force, oh boy, that'll get some attention, a 5:58, right in the thick of things with Ed McCullough and Mark Oswald. John Force, a nice, nice victory.
As we watch the replay, you can tell the head crew probably had a little bit too much clutch or a new clutch or a different clutch combination, but you know, they didn't have time to change all of that. All they had to do was get that engine in there. They were lucky to get that much done. And so they needed a tune-up run.
And you don't get an opportunity for a tune-up run when you are running the elimination rounds. This is the defending funny car world champion, Kenny Bernstein. And this is a matchup where we've got world championships all over the place. 3 world championships for Kenny Bernstein. He will face a 4-time funny car world champion, Don Prudhomme.
And Don Prudhomme has been having a very good day today. He's run some 560s. I was over in his pit a little earlier, and he thought that he had figured out how to get into the 550s, and he's going to need it with Bernstein, no doubt.
But Kenny Bernstein and his crew chief, Dale Armstrong, appear to be working with their machine, trying to figure some things out that just aren't working for them. Let's go to the far end, though, right now, and Steve Evans.
Well, John Force, you're just about where you need to be in the 550s, a 558 to be exact.
Here on a 58, she's pretty much routine. Motor's the same, just a few changes in the clutch, but it's a leave, pedal, go, and that's the way it is to get it to the other end. You know, Holly told me years ago that out in the middle he had to do a lot of things to give Coyle help to win a championship, and I'm learning that. I thought that was bull, but now I'm having to help Coyle, and this worries me.
And of course, John Force is talking about Frank Hawley, the former world champion, who also had his car crew chief by Austin Coyle, the same man who is now out-cheaping John Force's car.
I wonder right now, Don Garlits, if Don Prudhomme is thinking this is the best shot I've had at Kenny Bernstein in a long time. Bernstein, after setting the national record at 5.31 seconds, and now the body is up on that car, and that is very unusual. Nobody panicking down there, just wanting to look at something, apparently. Anyway, as I was saying, set the record at 5:31. He can't get out of the 570s here. Has not made one run down the racetrack, Kenny Bernstein, that car has not smoked the tire. He may give Prudhomme a good shot at him here. Don Prudhomme, the 4-time world champion, reeled off 4 consecutively back in the 70s. Bernstein, if he can win this year, will duplicate that feat.
This will be Prudhomme's best shot at Bernstein because he's been running better than him at the entire event. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Bernstein gets out in front of Prudhomme. His power must have fell off. You can see Dale Armstrong give her the victory signal there. 573 for Kenny Bernstein, 260 mile an hour. He'll go into the semifinals.
A race that really held so much promise, and then Kenny Bernstein with a very disappointing 573. Perhaps even more surprising was Prudhomme's 578 to lose.
Yeah, you know, Prudhomme must have figured something wrong. He thought he was going to step the car into the 550s. Instead of that, he slowed it down, which is the case lots of times. You guess wrong.
Steve's with Kenny Bernstein.
Why was the body up on the starting line?
Get some air in there. It's so fuely up there. See, it's got a headland which blows all the fuel into the cockpit. The fumes into the cockpit. You can't breathe, you can't see, so we just want to give it a little breath.
And I noticed you were using a surgical type mask in addition to usual breather mask.
Right, I'm trying to get any kind of help I can. I can't hardly even breathe up there. Again, the cars are sealed so good. There's just too much stuff inside.
Okay. Semifinals coming up.
Oh, Kenny Bernstein and Dale Armstrong are going to go back and scratch their heads and try to figure out how to get more speed out of that machine. Look down there on the ground. That's the mask that Bernstein was talking about. Helps filter some of those fumes that get in the cockpit. Here's the pairings for the semifinal round in funny car. Kenny Bernstein will face John Force. Force will have lane choice. And McCulloch will take on Mark Oswald. Mark Oswald will have his choice of lanes. And coming up next, it will be Top Fuel. This is Joe Amato's crew as they buckle Joe into the cockpit, ready for the semifinal rounds in Top Fuel Eliminator.
Well, they're hollering for more here at the AC Delco Southern Nationals near Atlanta, Georgia, and they're about to get it. Right now, let's go down to the staging lanes and get Don Garlits' predictions as to what we can expect to see in the semifinals.
Moments before the semifinal round, we're over here in Ed McCullough's pit. The crew are just putting the final touches on the Ace's car. His performance slowed down a little bit in the round before, but they found a burst plate that was ruptured, a very small, easily replaced item. Only cost about $70. Not very much in this day of drag racing. So the Ace should be running real good, but he's got a real good competitor in the form of Mark Oswald, whose performance stepped up considerably with a 555. So that looks like Funny Car is going to be a good race right off the bat. Now, Top Fuel, everything turned around. Darrell Gwynn run a 523, and he faces Joe Amato. So the kid is looking real good here at Atlanta. Remember now, he won here last year, so he'd like to repeat. But Eddie Hill is the talk of the hour with that strong 521, which was low ET of the event, and he faces Dennis Forcell. I feel like Hill will go easily into the final. Pro Stock, Warren Johnson moves closer to the championship with a nice 751, and all the other cars that could actually outrun him, in my opinion, are out of the race now. So if Warren just keeps his act together and doesn't break anything, he should go right to the final.
Well, Don, coming up now, the semifinal round in Top Fuel. As Darrell Gwynn has his lane choice, backing up, he's chosen the far lane and is ready to face former world champion Joe Amato.
Don, what was he doing just then with his hand? He wasn't waving to the crowd.
Oh, I think he was, Steve. You know, he come into this round, he's got low ET, he's got lane choice. I think he feels like he's got Amato cornered. You know, got the rat in the corner. He's going to get him. And so he just kind of relaxed, and that's unusual for Darrell.
Well, Joe Amato is a really intense guy, as you well know, and he thinks about nothing but drag racing. As far as his mind's concerned right now, there is no crowd here. There is not even a Darrell Gwynn here. The only thing there is a Christmas tree to be defeated.
And you can bet he's concentrating on it right now.
So two entirely different attitudes. The tension of a Joe Amato in the near lane. Darrell Gwynn, who seems relaxed and ready to run. in the far lane. Both inch up to the line now. Eyes concentrating on the Christmas tree, looking at the lights. Here comes Joe Amato as he makes his final move. And they both launch as Amato picks the front end up, drops it down, and comes across the line with a win. Joe Amato with a 5:30, 273 miles an hour to a 5:26. 237.
That will totally demoralize Daryl Glenn to be beaten by a whole shot. Remember, the timers don't start until the front wheels break the beam. Amato got off the mark first by, well, about 0.04 of a second. He ran a slower 5:30, defeated Gwen's 5:26. Boy, that'll hurt a driver's ego.
Yeah, Amato got off the line first, but Gwen passed him. But something must have happened to Daryl Gwen's car.
Yeah, Gwen's speed fell off almost 40 miles an hour at the finish line. Let's go to the far end. Steve is with Joe Amato.
Must have somebody riding on my shoulder today because we've been lucky. I was behind every race and I won from behind. See this decal here, Steve? This is Ken's Racer for Christ, and he kind of conned me into putting the decal on this morning. And he told me I'd have a bigger decal. I've been teasing him about the size of the decal. So he gave me a bigger decal. So he said, now I'm sponsored by God, and he's going to be praying extra hard for me. So maybe somebody's watching on my shoulder because I've been pretty lucky here today.
Well, the guy with some bad luck is going to be your crew and Tim Richards. An awful lot of smoke out of the right bank of this engine. It's hurt.
Well, we got a lot of parts. I mean, that's the easy part. The big thing is get the win light. You know, we're in the final, and we're going to win the race, hopefully.
Joe Amato continues to give driving lessons.
And of course, earlier, Joe was talking about the NHRA chaplain in his Racers for Christ program. That's Ken Owen. Every Sunday morning before a race, you can see a large tent and a good crowd as Ken holds the services right at the racetrack.
In Oswald's pit area, they're working on the clutch. He faces Ed McClellan in the semifinals. These clutches are really technical these days.
Well, John, when you first started racing, they had one disc, and then they went to 2, and then 3, and now they've got as many as 4 discs in those clutches, and you're right. They take one man on the crew just to monitor that clutch. Eddie Hill over in the far lane, still the talk of this huge crowd at the New Atlanta Dragway. He has a track record now at 5:21. Fuzzy Carter, the bearded gentleman moving in there, that's the crew chief on the machine. Dennis Worcel, his rookie year at Top Fuel Racing, and I'll tell you, he shows a lot of promise.
Of course, in this round, he faces Eddie Hill.
If I had my pick of any of the fuelers that I'd like to drive, that Hill car would be an interesting one.
It goes so straight, Don, like it's on rails. Everybody else is having problems that way. Hill's just absolutely straight as a straight. Here is Eddie Hill, and again, we will go for a ride with the quickest driver in the world of drag racing. Eddie Hill off the mark, the car straight again as he reaches up for the clutches. Having handling problems is Dennis Worcel. It is Eddie Hill, much to his crew's delight, and he resets the track record. 5:18, 278 miles per hour. Joe Amato, however, still has top speed of the meet at 2:80.
As we watch the replay, both cars get off the mark almost even. But Purcell's car smokes just immediately. The crew stepped the engine up just a little bit too much, trying to compete with Eddie Hill and that awesome power that he's generating today.
It's down to 2 men now in Top Fuel. The final round will see Eddie Hill with lane choice as he faces Joe Amato. In the meantime, let's go down to the far end as Steve is with Eddie Hill.
Tell me, Eddie Hill, do you like track records?
Yes, I do. Did I get one?
Sure did at 5:18.
5:18. Oh, track record. How fast?
278 miles an hour. It's got some power.
Well, yeah, it's making power. 18.
Now, Don Garlits told me before the race ever started, if he could pick one car here that he was going to drive and win with, it would be your car because it's long and the motor's closely coupled to the rear axle.
I believe it's the best car out here. I think Tom did good when he bought us this deal here.
It looks like you're just cruising down through there.
Oh, the car is so easy, man. It's so easy to drive and so easy to shift and lock up, and everything just happens real naturally. It doesn't act like it ever wants to break loose and smoke the tires. It just acts like the more power we make, the better it likes it. I love it.
You got it all on your side going into the final. Good luck.
It feels great. Thank you. We're having a great time.
We are watching you.
Well, there's no question about that. Eddie Hill, one very happy man, is campaigning a magnificent season. In the meantime, it's hard work back in the funny car area as Austin Coyle and the crew go to work on John Force's car, preparing to face Kenny Bernstein in the semifinal round of funny car. We'll be back.
If you think that professional drag racing is all glamour and fun, take a look at the grim expressions on the faces of Kenny Bernstein's crew, the engine completely apart, as they try to find the kind of horsepower it will take to race John Force in the semifinals here at the AC Delco Southern Nationals drag races. I'm Steve Evans along with Paul Page and Don Garlits, and it is time right now for the semifinal round of Pro Stock. It will be Tony Christian versus Joe Lapone, and now Joe Lapone, the Chevy Beretta, over in the far lane, has our onboard camera, Paul.
And of course, in Pro Stock, we're talking reading that tree just as close as you can. We see as he reaches down, puts his hand on top of that 4-speed Lingo transmission, grabs a gear as they come off the line. And what Lapone can see out the front window is Tony Christian driving away and winning it with a 754, 184 miles an hour.
And I'll tell you what, it's one thing to get beat close, but when you can look through the windshield and see the guy driving away, it gives you a sick feeling right in your stomach.
So Tony Christian moves into the final round in Pro Stock. Who will he face? Will it be Warren Johnson in this machine or Kenny Delco over in the far lane? One thing is certain, that Tony Christian is having the best outing of this season. Right now, he's at the far end with Steve.
Well, Tony Christian, you are finals bound with a 754.
I just need one more. I don't know. Feeling pretty good today, and I don't know, I'm happy.
How did the car respond? Any problems?
No, none at all. Car's flawless.
You're the only guy that hasn't been a complainer down here today.
This Willie Rawls car and this rear Morrison motor, you can't beat it.
Okay, let's go back to the starting line and see who you're going to race.
Okay, no Warren Johnson.
Well, I'm surprised he wants to face Warren Johnson. Johnson is, after all, a man that is known for all kinds of secrecy in his pit area. Steve took a look earlier.
Well, if you think that's a strange-looking intake manifold on Warren Johnson's Oldsmobile Pro Soccer, you're actually not seeing the intake manifold. This is all cardboard to disguise it, cover it up. The last thing Warren Johnson wants any of his fellow competitors to see is that manifold. And remember, these are open pits. Everybody can spy on everybody else. Bob Glidden does essentially the same thing, because if there are speed secrets in these engines, they're in the manifold or possibly in the cylinder heads. That's where all the development, thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours goes.
Well, Don Garlits, how much of that is covering up a real secret, and how much of it is a smokescreen to pull your attention from the real trick?
Warren Johnson told me earlier, I was over there looking at that, he said it was intellectual intercourse.
Well, I'm not sure what that means, and I'm not sure that I want to pursue it.
I'm sure I don't. Here is Warren Johnson in the near lane. Kenny Delco on the far side. And a good start by both drivers. A little out of control is Delco, and that cost him, but he's still hanging in there. Anytime these cars go straight, you lose valuable time. Warren Johnson, he did it about as well as he can. Warren Johnson into the final round at a 753, 185 miles per hour. Don Garlits, you called that one early in the day.
Like I said, if he doesn't break something, he's going to win this race. Look at that beautiful start. Beautiful reaction time. Johnson makes a move toward this championship. Delco gives him a real good race. He's right in there, but you can see the power of that Oldsmobile as he moves on down the track. He just kind of pulls gradually out in front of him, and there's nothing that Delco can do about it. Runs a nice 753, and that's right in there with what he needs to do.
Well, for Warren Johnson, I only have good news. You know you won. You're in a 753, and by 100th, that'll give you lane choice. How important is lane choice in a Pro Stock car here?
Right now, it's not too bad, but the way this track's been going this afternoon with the heat on it and barring an oil down or something like that, it's really unpredictable. So at this point in time, it doesn't seem to be a real problem, but you know how that goes.
I'll tell you, your opponent in the final round, Tony Christian, he's got blood in his eye.
Oh, yeah? So do I.
Should be a great Pro Stock final.
Well, right now, Warren Johnson suggests that lane choice doesn't mean a great deal, but it could mean a lot if we get a bad oil down. So in the final round of Pro Stock, Warren Johnson will face Tony Christian. And as Steve told you, Johnson has lane choice by 1/100th of a second. In Joe Amato's pit, well, they make preparations for final round in top fuel as well. Amato is preparing to meet with Eddie Hill. We'll be back with the semifinal rounds of Funny Car right after this.
It's time for the Funny Car semifinals here at the new Atlanta Dragway, the AC Delco Southern Nationals. That was Kenny Bernstein indicating to his crew to latch that body down. He hopes that his men have found a couple of tenths of a second because he may need them. He is up against John Brute Force, Bellflower, California. And Paul Bates, how many times have we heard John Force say publicly how much he wants to beat the big red car? He's possessed by it.
Well, the fixation is with just that. This man, John Force, sees that red car and wants to get past him. But the other side of that is that any time John Force needs a piece of information, it seems that the very first person that he goes to is, in fact, the reigning world champion and the defending champion at this meet, Kenny Bernstein. The racing of a funny car is balancing the power. It requires a driver's and a crew chief's skill. Earlier, Steve talked with John Force.
Crew Chief Austin Coyle has prepared a funny car for John Force that is driven like no other car in the pits. John, give us a demonstration.
Well, to give you a reason why first, Steve, to give me more time to work my promotions, Coyle had to give me a car that was different, that I really didn't have to spend a lot of time thinking about. The biggest job I do here is hold the brake handle and activate the throttle, but everything else is right off the dashboard. I'll show you here. Example, switch right here on the dash. This is your braking system. A button here activates it if it spins the tires on a dry, with a dual caliper down, single caliper up. Definitely help a driver in a tough situation. Here to the right is the timing system for activating the 4-stage clutch that Crew Chief Austin Coyle designed. I'll run through the stages of it, and if you listen, you can hear the timers going off. Stage in the car, you activate it manually by hand valve, which richens it or leans the motor, and then the timer starts. The timer does not start until I activate the throttle. If you listen, it'll go through the process. And naturally, the lights on the dashboard lights up. At 800 foot, if it doesn't light up, buddy, then the car will light up, because that means she's at low gear in the lights, and we could definitely have trouble. We have an override on it, a manual system that I can run through, that if the car's in trouble, by using this button, I can put her into high gear. Could save a motor in a critical situation.
All in all, you enjoy driving this car?
All in all, this car is a supercar. This is like driving an old Hudson with an automatic transmission. He couldn't have built a finer piece that, like I say, gives me more time to concentrate on my sponsors, and the car does its driving for itself.
If you're not careful, he may run this car by remote control.
Well, he's warmed it up. You've heard the old saying, like a spark plug, we screw them drivers in and we screw them out. But now he needs me to set off this throttle and hit the parachute, so I got a job here for a while.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And it's nice of Austin Coyle to build a light in to tell you when to get scared. Well, on the red car, they had the top up, but the indication, of course, earlier from Kenny Bernstein was that's just to get the fumes out of the cockpit before they head down the drag strip. John Force ready to run.
I'd sure like to say that's an ingenious device on there, that air brake system to keep from spinning the tires. I don't think anybody else in the sport's got that.
No, they don't. You know, I love the noise and the sound of these funny cars, but sometimes I wish I could hear John Force, because I bet he's hollering and yelling in there. It is Kenny Bernstein out first. Bernstein, and here comes John Force. John Force has won the semifinals, goes into the final round. He was beaten, and he came from behind, 560 to a 572.
Kenny Bernstein, as we watch the replay, does an excellent job of driving, but Dale Armstrong was unable to find the horsepower clutch combination for this tricky Atlanta surface. So John Force goes into the final of the Atlanta Southern Nationals.
Well, there's the stuff that dreams are made of. John Force finally beats the red car. Imagine what he's like at the far end.
John Force, how long you've waited to beat that big red car, as you call it. You've done it with a 560.
Waited a long time, Steve. Didn't think no old truck driver could get here, but let me tell you something. Last year, he took me and Coyle out here in the final round, and we just didn't know where we were at or whether we should be in this business. But today, she went out there, she shook, and that old red car made a move on me, and I thought, he did it again. And then that old muscle come in there from Coyle, and she drove around him. Let him have a taste of that.
Sounded like you were driving that car with the throttle, too.
Yeah, I'm having to give Coyle a little bit of help today. Not much, but I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something very serious here, Steve. You know this. My dad passed away a week ago, and him and I used to talk right here in Atlanta years ago. He says, why does that guy always outrun you? And I said, I don't know. And he told me, well, you know, maybe it's mental. Maybe your mind's not right. And you know what, Pop? This one was for you here. We took him out.
John Force. What can I say?
Well, Austin Coyle gave him just the right amount of power, and John Force knew what to do with it. Back at the starting line, Ed McCullough is ready to take on this man, Mark Oswald, in the Candies and Hughes machine.
Don Garlits, this looks like a toss-up race to me.
It is a toss-up race, Steve, because they ran a 5:55 in the round before, and even though McCullough did not, they replaced that burst plate, and their performance should be right back. So, you know, 5:52, 5:55, that's whoever gets off the line first. So this could be a driver's race, no question about it.
Well, let's see who does indeed get off the line first. That is Oswald in the far lane, the Thunderbird-bodied car. Oldsmobile machine from Larry Minor Racing in California. Ed McCullough at the switch. He's in the near lane. A perfect start by both drivers. Oswald may have slipped the tires just a little bit. He's falling behind, but he's coming back. Too little, too late. Bernie Federle, crew chief for Ed McCullough. He's on the board. Low ET of the Southern Nationals event for funny cars, 5:52 at 2:69.
In the replay, Oswald does get the starting line advantage. But the crew of McCullough's car, by replacing that burst plate, put that car back with the performance edge that it had earlier and sets low ET of the event and goes on to win the round.
Well, Ed McCullough has been on a diet. He's lost 45 pounds. Apparently it's helping his driving a bit, too, because he has lane choice by 8/100ths of a second over John Force in the final round.
I want to know how a guy loses 45 pounds, and your inspiration was to lighten up the racing operation, really?
Well, that's what it's all about. These race cars run quicker, lighter, and if you're going to be a driver, you got to be lighter.
Got a diet tip?
Quit eating, quit drinking. That's it. It's wonderful.
That'll work.
A lighter and happier Ed McCullough. Final rounds, pro stock, coming up next.
There is so much to see and do at an NHRA championship drag race such as this one, the AC Delco Southern Nationals at the New Atlanta Dragway. I'm Steve Evans along with Paul Page and Don Garlits, and a lot of those fans will be headed back to the grandstands now, Big Daddy, because here is the Pro Stock Final, and it's a very interesting one.
Johnson, picture of consistency today. He won here in '86, and he could just win here today if he just keeps everything cool. That's really the thing now, the high pressure that's on you at a time like this in the final. You just real prone to making mistakes, Steve.
Well, Tony Christian is becoming a big name in pro stock racing recently, but let's remember that he raced in the sportsman classes, modifieds and gassers for some 20 years with the National Hot Rod Association and won 5 titles there. So I think he's got the poise that it takes. He'll be calm enough coming to the starting line, even though he's never won in this category.
Yes, he has, and he's been in the finals before, so he knows what it's all about. Johnson has got to do everything right, but Christian's got to lean on it just a little bit.
They stage very carefully. The RPMs are up, and look at the wheels in the air for Tony Christian. Can he handle Warren Johnson? Johnson in the far lane, Christian in the near lane. Oh, the big power of the Oldsmobile pays off on the far end. His crew celebrates their second Southern Nationals victory in 3 years. A 7:51 to a 7:88 by Tony Christian. I think Christian just saw Johnson running away and may have eased off the gas a bit. Warren Johnson handles it as you predicted early on, Don.
Well, Christian gets him off the line with a little bit of a start there, but Johnson was not going to be denied this weekend. He didn't try anything tricky, no funny deals, just run his race by himself and run a nice 7:51 over there, and that's what it takes. Picture of consistency.
Well, he definitely dominated this race. Steve?
Tony Christian still looking for that first national event win, but he came mighty close. He is a wonderful competitor, isn't he, Warren?
Yes, sir. There's no doubt about it. Tony's been around for a while. He's really new to pro stock, but he's going to be tough in the years to come. No doubt about it.
A 7:51 finished it off.
Good. I think that's low ET for eliminations, too. I think that's good. I'd like to take this time to devote wish Jay Gerard, manager of motorsports, SVO for Oldsmobile, a speedy recovery. He's having a little tough time lately, but he'll come through.
A good friend of our own.
Yeah, and without his faith and backing, really, this wouldn't really be possible. The AC Delco Oldsmobile came through just because of him.
Congratulations, WJ.
Thank you, Steve.
Dave Gerard has been fighting a battle with cancer, and we all wish him well. Now let's go to Don.
As we go into the funny car final, I think Ed McCullough has the edge. They repaired that burst panel that gave up on that previous round, that little $70 part, and the car picked right up, 5:52, low ET at the Atlanta Dragway. Now that's really stout. And Force has been very steady all day long, but steady is not going to get it against a 5:52. It takes a good ET to win drag races. And so I think if Ed McCullough doesn't break anything, you're looking at the Southern Nationals winner right here.
Well, the conversation is friendly right now, but in just a moment, they'll fight it out for the final round in Funny Car.
Well, nobody's touring the pits now at the AC Delco Southern Nationals here at Atlanta Dragway. They are packed into the stands because there is a total of about 11 seconds remaining in racing. The Funny Car Final and the Top Fuel Final. First up are the supercharged fuel coupes. Ed the Ace McCullough, he will take the far lane. And that may be a bit of a surprise to some, including yours truly. When he didn't have lane choice, he was put in the near lane and went quicker than anyone has for 3 days, and now with lane choice, he takes the other side. And what a burnout by John Force. You know, the Top Fuel final to come features the same two combatants we saw at the Gator Nationals in Gainesville, Eddie Hill and Joe Amato. Let's check in with Don Garlits and see how he sees this one.
As we go into this Top Fuel final, I can't imagine how these drivers must be feeling. It's almost like deja vu for me. Here we have Eddie Hill, low ET of the event, a strong 518. That's almost as good as a 506 at Gainesville. Poor old Joe Amato, 530. He's got to have exactly the same thing on his mind he had at Gainesville in the final. What am I going to do? How does a 530 beat a 518? For Eddie Hill, on the other hand, he wants to stretch that lead out on those points. He can't make any mistakes. The same pressures is on him. I'm telling you, it's deja vu in every sense of the word.
Well, at Gainesville, Don Garlits correctly predicted Eddie Hill would win, and I didn't notice any distinct prediction there, but he was standing with the yellow car. All right, here is John Force and Ed McCullough. Don Garlits says that Force is the underdog here. McCullough could be favored just based on that 552 earlier. McCullough changing lanes, as I mentioned. He ran a 52 in the near lane. Now he's in the far lane. Will that make a difference? The afternoon has cooled off. The air is a little bit better. They may make a bit more horsepower. Don Garlits is back with us. What do you think?
Well, you know, it's a good question there. These cars are pretty evenly matched. Either one makes a mistake, it's all over. But McCullough does have a little performance edge.
Now, you're right. It's mistake-free drag racing to put you in the winner's circle these days. The tripling green, they're up together. Force having some control problems. Ed McCullough just as straight as you can ask for. Ed McCullough has won the AC Delco Southern Nationals Funny Car title for the second time in 3 years. Another 552. Bernie Federle has got that car running terrific in either lane.
When we watch the replay, we'll see that Force gave it his best shot. Runs a beautiful reaction time, gets a starting line advantage, but just can't hold it because they just too strong over in that other lane. That Bernie Federle put a motor together that was really working good.
Ed the Ace McCullough wins it. Let's go to the far end and Steve.
Ed McCullough has won his 10th NHRA national event victory. I don't know if you keep score, but we do. Congratulations, Ace.
That was a good one. I mean, the boys are tough. This was our week.
552 finished it off. Low ET by a few thousandths.
Well, that's good. I mean, the thing's running like, you know, our Oldsmobile here is running like a clock, you know. I just want to say one thing. A good friend of ours, dear friend of ours, David Gerard with Oldsmobile, a little under the weather. We want to wish him, you know, a quick return and come on back out here. This one's for you, David.
Warren Johnson had the same sentiments, and I think 2 Oldsmobiles so far in the victory circle are going to cheer old Dave up. Again, anytime you race John Force, it's kind of special, though, because you know how pumped up he is.
I tell you what, these guys, they work hard. They run a lot of races, you know. I mean, they're coast to coast, back and forth all the time, and, you know, my hat's off to the boys. They do a good job. I mean, my hat's off to our guys. Bernie Federle, Corey Lee, Chris McNichol, our whole gang, you know, did an outstanding job here. We've got some consistency. Miller, Oldsmobile, here we are.
And let's not forget car owner Larry Miner. He'll be thrilled when he hears of this victory back in California. Ed McCullough has done it.
Ed McCullough, happy and very gracious in victory here at the Southern Nationals. Well, there is one more race left to run. There is Eddie Hill as he inches up, kicks the power in, and burns the tires out as we're ready for the final round in Top Fuel. Joe Amato on the near side, ready to face Eddie Hill.
Joe Amato, you know, he's running his old car from last year. Had a new car, took it home, put it up, went and got his old, thought something was wrong with the new car. So you look across the strip, you see Eddie Hill, the long car, the small front wheels, Joe Amato on the near side, short car, big front wheels. This is definitely a battle of the old versus the new.
But consider Eddie Hill, first man with a sub-5 run, the winner at the Gator Nationals. The key is mechanical consistency.
Well, you talk about a trouble-free automobile. They've only taken one head off today. They've only slightly hurt 2 pistons, and for the final round, this engine will stay together except for the bearings. Buzzy, you're checking the bearings. You can tell a lot by reading those.
Yeah, I'm going to put all 8 new bearings in it, and we'll carry the old ones in there and read them and check them and see if we make any fuel changes on the nozzles.
So you're tuning a bit by looking at the bearings. Dick LaHaye does that.
Yeah, Dick does that, and I watched him do it. We started doing it, and you can tell a lot by it.
You've got the time. Why not take the heads off and look at it?
There's no need. Everything's real nice, and my side-to-side clearance is real free, so I hadn't got any problems upstairs.
I got one. I got oil jumping all over my arm. We'll see you later.
So Don Garlits, Fuzzy Carter, is he taking a chance by not changing everything, or if it's not broke, don't fix it, eh?
Well, about the only thing could be wrong in there, Paul, is it could have a collapsed oil ring, and that wouldn't show in any way until he started the motor. I would opt to take the heads off.
Eddie Hill with the far lane, his second consecutive final round. He won in Gainesville. Joe Amato has been in all 3 final rounds this year. Let's ride with Eddie Hill. Again, the car launches like a rocket, and Joe Amato has shut up. This race belongs to that crew. Ursi Hill, Fuzzy Carter, and most of all, this man who's got to be singing a song down to the shutdown area, Eddie Hill, 5.19.
You watched him win at the Gator Nationals. You rode with him in his win here at the Southern Nationals. Eddie Hill.
As we watch the replay, we see that Joe Amato knew he had his work cut out for him, and he gets his traditional starting line advantage. But a little bit too much power and a little too much clutch from the Tim Richards department, and he goes up in smoke, and away goes his chances of a Southern Nationals victory.
For the accolades of this giant crowd, richly deserved as they salute Eddie Hill's crew as they head down to the far end.
Eddie Hill, you've done it again. 2 back-to-back NHRA events. Once you start winning, you don't quit.
Oh, man, this is fun. What'd they run on the final?
19.
Oh, well, that's not bad. Got the track record and backed it up. What a deal. Another win.
Joe Amato smoked the tires. Did you see him at all on the leave?
I saw him, yeah. I think he probably got out on me a little. He nearly always does. And then it disappeared before I ever got to the lockup, so I figured maybe he had trouble.
The car is just cruising. How long can this possibly last? You've got to pinch yourself.
I don't know. I hope it lasts maybe 15 or 20 years.
And what a job your guys have done. The engine is so efficient they seldom even take it apart.
One head came off once today. What a deal.
Just amazing. And thanks for carrying our camera and taking all of us for a ride.
Oh, yeah, you bet. My pleasure. I just hope they come out good and hope, we got some thrills for the spectators that otherwise wouldn't have had a chance to see what it's like to do this deal. I mean, that doesn't give you the whole deal, but maybe that gives you a little shot of it.
Well, I'll tell you, this car goes so straight your hands hardly move on the steering wheel.
Is that right? I hadn't seen the film yet, but it'll be interesting for me to see it.
It's wonderful. Thanks again and congratulations.
Oh, thank you. We're having a great time.
Well, the celebration hasn't even begun yet because Ursi Hill hasn't arrived.
So our congratulations to Eddie Hill, also to Warren Johnson and Ed McCullough, winners at the AC Delco Southern Nationals. This is Paul Page for Don Garlits and Steve Evans. So long from Atlanta Dragway.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Pallage. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the Style Auto World Championship Team, the nation's premier source of fast lane fashion. Style Auto, the champion's choice for the style of your life.
Just wish y'all could go in there with me at times.
We're going to get this thing with good light.
The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond B Sports.